Be me, 32F. Writing this from my kitchen table. Toddler is down for his nap. House is quiet, except for the hum of the dishwasher. Husband won't be home for another 4 hours. This is my life now. If you told me this 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. Then probably written a 10,000-word blog post about your internalized misogyny. But here we are. I feel like I've lived 2 different lives. I'm an ex-feminist who became a trad wife. Go ahead, pick your jaw up off the floor. My journey into the abyss began where many do. A liberal arts college, born in the mid-90s. Grew up a normal suburban kid. My parents were fine. A little boring, but stable. Went off to college, bright-eyed and ready to find myself. Majored in sociology with a minor in gender studies. It was like getting a software update for my brain. Everything was a construct. Everything was the patriarchy. The professor who gave me a B- on a paper. Patriarchy. The barista who put whole milk in my latte instead of soy. Patriarchy. I remember my dorm room. Walls covered in Smash the Patriarchy posters. My roommate, a sweet girl from Ohio studying nursing, just wanted to put up a poster of a sunset. I explained to her how the romanticization of nature was a tool of colonialist oppression. She moved out the next semester. Can't imagine why. Dating was a minefield of my own making. I saw relationships not as partnerships, but as practical applications of feminist theory. There were 2 types of guys I'd date. Type 1, the walking apology. These guys were usually also in the humanities department. They used words like problematic in casual conversation. They'd preface every opinion with, as a cishet white male, I recognize my privilege, but... Dating them was like dating a flaccid, sentient notepad. There was no spark, no leadership, no anything. I didn't respect them, and they seemed to hate themselves. It was exhausting. Type 2, the project. These were guys from outside the liberal arts bubble, maybe a business major or an athlete. I saw them as clay to be molded. My mission was to educate them, to deprogram them of their toxic masculinity. Every date was a lecture. Every movie we watched was an opportunity for me to pause it and deconstruct the male gaze. One time a guy took me to a baseball game. I spent 7 innings explaining to him how the phallic nature of the bat reinforced patriarchal violence. He bought me a hot dog and then never called me again. My longest college relationship was with a guy named Kyle. Peak type 1. Thin. Wore glasses he didn't need. Owned an impressive collection of tote bags. Our entire relationship was a performance. We'd go to protests, attend dialogues, and constantly check each other's privilege. It wasn't a romance. It was a non-profit organization with 2 resentful employees. We'd have these marathon fights that were really just competitive wokeness contests. You're invalidating my lived experience by centering your own emotional response. Well, you're weaponizing your identity to shut down a valid critique of your problematic language. It was like a parody, but we were dead serious. He eventually cheated on me with a girl from his poetry slam collective. When I confronted him, he explained that our relationship's attempt to adhere to monogamous norms was inherently oppressive, and his transgression was actually a form of revolutionary praxis. I cried for 3 days, not because I missed him, but because I almost believed him. Graduated in 2015. Armed with a $50,000 degree in why the world is bad, I was ready to fix it. Got a job at a non-profit that focused on community advocacy. Said it important. Reality. I was an underpaid glorified secretary in an office full of Kyles and older versions of me. The atmosphere was suffocating. It was a snake pit of passive aggression and social justice one-upmanship. Someone would bring in donuts, and there'd be a 45-minute Slack debate about the ethics of sugar production and whether the donut box was sufficiently inclusive. My boss, a woman named Sharon who was in her late 40s, was the final boss of my ideology. Divorced twice. No kids. Her entire identity was her career. She was perpetually stressed, angry, and seemed to subsist entirely on lukewarm coffee and a sense of moral superiority. She was my hero. She was who I was supposed to become. The thought filled me with a deep, cold dread that I couldn't articulate. My late 20s were a blur of rage and exhaustion. I was a girl boss. I leaned in so hard I was practically horizontal. My day started with scrolling through Twitter, getting angry about some injustice. I'd go to work, get angry about some microaggression in a meeting. I'd come home, get in an argument with a stranger in a Facebook comment section. My entire emotional spectrum was just different shades of indignation. My health was a wreck. I had constant anxiety. I'd lie awake at night, my heart pounding, mentally composing arguments with imaginary sexists. I had migraines. My stomach was always in knots. My doctor told me to reduce stress. How do you reduce stress when your entire belief system is predicated on the idea that you are a soldier in a perpetual, all-encompassing war against an invisible enemy? I was fighting for liberation, but I'd never felt more trapped. Then I turned 29. It's a cliché, but it's true. 30 starts looking at you like a freight train in a tunnel. All my feminist theory didn't stop that primal, biological panic from setting in. I was alone. My friends from college were either like me, miserable, single, working thankless jobs, or they had quietly sold out. One by one, they started pairing off with the guys they used to mock, the finance bros, the engineers, the normies. Their Instagrams changed from protest pictures to engagement announcements. I told myself they were traitors, that they had buckled under patriarchal pressure. But late at night, alone in my apartment that smelled like burnt toast and despair, the jealousy was a physical ache. The real cataclysm was quiet. It wasn't a protest or a march. It was a Saturday. I was scrolling through Facebook, mainlining my daily dose of outrage. Saw a post from a girl I knew in high school. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah wasn't a girl boss. She didn't go to a fancy college. I think she became a dental hygienist or something. In my 22-year-old brain, she was a cautionary tale, a life of wasted potential. Her post was a photo album titled Sunday Fun. Pictures of her husband, and their 2 little kids at a pumpkin patch. Her husband, a big goofy-looking guy, was carrying one kid on his shoulders. Sarah was holding the other, laughing. They weren't curating an image. They weren't performing for an audience. They just looked happy. Genuinely, uncomplicatedly happy. A feeling I hadn't felt in a decade. My first reaction was textbook. A sneer. Look at her, trapped in the cage of domesticity, performing femininity for the male gaze. Sad, but the sneer felt hollow. Underneath it was a different feeling, something sharp and painful. Envy. It was the most problematic thought I'd ever had. I was jealous of a housewife. I slammed my laptop shut, heart pounding again, but this time, it wasn't from anger, it was from fear. Fear that my entire life was a mistake. A few weeks later, my friend Amy from work was having a housewarming barbecue. I didn't want to go. Social events for me were just opportunities to be disappointed in people. But she insisted. You need to get out of your apartment, it's not healthy. My plan was to make an appearance, talk to no one, eat a sad veggie burger from a distance, and ghost within an hour. I was standing in the corner of her backyard, nursing a beer and mentally critiquing the gendered division of labor. All the men were by the grill, of course, when a guy walked up to me. Hiding out, he said, with a smile. I braced myself, prepared my standard issue feminist lecture on why his casual observation was a microaggression, but I looked at him, and the words just died in my throat. He was tall, not I do yoga and drink soy lattes tall, but I can reach things on the top shelf for you tall. He had calluses on his hands. He looked like he knew how to fix things. This was Alan, my future husband. Something like that, I mumbled. I get it. I'm not a big party guy either. I'm just here for my buddy, the one who set the potato salad on fire. He pointed to the grill, where a small plume of smoke was indeed rising from a foil tray. He asked what I did. I launched into my pre-rehearsed spiel. I work in community advocacy, focusing on intersectional frameworks to dismantle systemic barriers for marginalized populations. I waited for the nod of performative understanding, or the confused look. He just took a sip of his beer. Wow, that sounds really important. Must be stressful. That was it. No follow-up questions about Foucault's theories on power, no attempt to impress me with his own progressive bona fides. He just accepted it, and then changed the subject. So, have you seen the new Blade Runner? I thought it was way better than the original. My brain felt like a computer that had just been given a command it didn't understand. We ended up talking for 3 hours. We talked about movies, music, video games, the best place to get tacos in the city, his stupid dog, my stupid cat. It was the longest conversation I'd had in years that wasn't about an issue. I found myself laughing, not a cynical, ironic chuckle, but a real, deep belly laugh. I had forgotten what that felt like. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him without hesitation. The entire drive home, I had an argument with myself. My brain, he's an engineer, an instrument of the technocratic capitalist state. My heart, but he has nice eyes and he made me laugh. My brain, this is how the patriarchy snares you, with charm and seeming stability. My heart, but he was nice to me. It was a terrifyingly new experience. Our first few dates were a culture war in miniature. I kept trying to steer the conversation back to my comfort zone, grievance. On date 3, at a nice Italian restaurant, I brought up the gender pay gap. I laid out all the statistics, the talking points, the studies, a 15-minute monologue. He listened patiently, chewing on a breadstick. When I was done, breathless and righteous, he just nodded slowly. Yeah, that's messed up. Things should be fair. He paused. Are you going to finish your lasagna? I was speechless. I had built this entire fortress of academic jargon and moral outrage, and he just walked around it. He refused to fight with me. One night, I was on one of my rants. I don't even remember what it was about. Probably how air conditioning is sexist. I was pacing around his living room, getting more and more worked up. He was sitting on the couch, watching me. Finally, he just held up a hand. Hey, he said, his voice calm and firm. I love you, but I just got home from a 10-hour shift. I'm exhausted. Can we please just be quiet together for a little while? We can talk about this tomorrow if you want. I stopped mid-sentence. My entire nervous system crashed. No man had ever done that. My past boyfriends would have either engaged, leading to a 4-hour screaming match, or they would have cowered and apologized for making me upset. Alan just drew a boundary, a reasonable, healthy boundary. I felt a flash of fury, followed by a wave of relief. I didn't have to perform. I didn't have to fight. I sat down on the couch next to him, and for the first time in my adult life, I just shut up. We just sat there in silence, watching some dumb action movie. He put his arm around me. It was the most intimate moment I'd had in any relationship. He didn't try to liberate me with words. He just showed me what a healthy partnership looked like. My sink was clogged. I had been ignoring it for a month, planning to write a strongly worded letter to my landlord. Alan came over, took one look at it, went to his car, and came back with a toolbox, fixed it in 20 minutes. I didn't know how to react. I just stood there. Thank you, I said, feeling weird. No problem, babe, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. That's what I'm here for. My feminist brain was screaming. He's reinforcing gender roles. You are a damsel in distress, but my actual self was just grateful. A problem I had was now gone because of him. It was simple. It was real. Unlike dismantling heteronormativity, which was an abstract concept that just made me tired and angry. I started to change. I found myself wanting to do things for him, not out of obligation, not as emotional labor. I just wanted to. He'd have a tough week at work, so I'd make sure his favorite beer was in the fridge. I'd cook him a nice dinner. It felt good. Making him happy made me happy. What a revolutionary concept. I started to unplug from the outrage machine. I deleted Twitter. I unfollowed the angry bloggers. My old friends noticed. You seem different, they'd say, with a hint of accusation. We went out for drinks with 2 of my old non-profit colleagues. They spent the whole time quizzing Alan on his political views. He was polite but non-committal. They exchanged looks over my head. Later, Amy called me. He's nice and all, but don't you think he's a little simple? Does he even understand what you do? For the first time, I got angry for him. He works 50 hours a week building literal bridges so people can get to work, Amy. What the f do you do? You write emails about synergy. I hung up. We didn't talk for a year after that. The cognitive dissonance was deafening. My entire identity was built on a foundation of feminist ideology. But my actual, real-life happiness was coming from a place that completely contradicted it. My ideology said Alan was the problem. My heart said he was the answer. My heart was winning. A year and a half after we met, he proposed. We were on a hike. It was simple, private, perfect. I said yes without a moment's hesitation. Some of my old friends sent congratulations. Some sent links to articles about the patriarchal history of marriage. Some just went silent. My mum cried. She said, "I'm just so glad you found a good man who makes you smile." It was that simple for her. I had spent a decade making it complicated. About 6 months before the wedding, Alan got a massive job offer. It was a huge promotion. A manager role. Double his salary. The only catch? It was in a different state. 600 miles away. My job at the non-profit was obviously tied to the city we lived in. We were at a crossroads. I spiraled. Do I ask him to turn it down? Do I try to find another miserable non-profit job in the new city? Do we try long distance? The thought of starting over in my career filled me with more dread than ever. I was 31. The idea of being the new girl in another office full of Sharons and Amys was soul-crushing. One night, Alan sat me down on the couch. Our couch. He took my hands. "Listen," he said. "I know this is a huge deal. And I want you to know, whatever you decide, we'll make it work. If you want to stay here and keep your job, I'll turn this down. Or we can try long distance. We'll figure it out." He paused, took a deep breath. "But I also want to put another option on the table. With this new salary, I can take care of us, both of us, easily. And if you wanted, you wouldn't have to work." I opened my mouth to protest, the feminist programming kicking in. He held up a hand. "Just hear me out. Not forever. Unless you want to. But you could take a break. You're so stressed all the time. You could write that novel you used to talk about. You could take painting classes. You could sleep past 6 a.m. You could just stop fighting for a while. The choice is 100% yours. I'll support you no matter what." He didn't tell me what to do. He just opened a door I didn't even know existed. He was offering me freedom. Not the abstract, ideological freedom feminism had promised me, which turned out to be the freedom to work a job I hated, be angry all the time, and die alone. This was a real, tangible freedom. Freedom from the daily grind and the soul-sucking outrage. I realized in that moment that the cage I was in wasn't the patriarchy. It was my own ideology. A cage I had built for myself. Bar by hateful bar. I looked at this good, kind, strong man who loved me. I started to cry. Not tears of sadness or anger, but of overwhelming relief. "I want to take a break," I sobbed. "I'm so tired." He just pulled me into his arms and held me. 2 weeks later, I walked into Sharon's office and gave my notice. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating moment of my life. We moved. We bought a small house with a yard in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The first few months were strange. I felt guilty. I'd wake up with no job to go to, no meetings to attend, no emails to answer. Alan would go to work, and the silence of the house would be deafening. I felt like I should be productive. I'd spend hours on my laptop, trying to write freelance articles about social justice. I'd apply for remote jobs I knew I didn't want. I was trying to cling to the wreckage of my old identity. One afternoon, Alan came home early and found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by half-written Word documents, just staring into space, crying. He came over and gently closed my laptop. "What are you doing?" he asked softly. "I'm not contributing," I mumbled. "I feel useless." He knelt down beside me and tilted my chin up. "Your contribution is not a line on a tax return," he said. "You're my partner. Your job is to be happy. That's all I want. If that means you lie on the couch and read novels for 6 months, great. If it means you want to turn that jungle of a backyard into a garden, awesome. Your worth isn't tied to your productivity. Permission." He gave me permission to just be. So I stopped trying to be my old self. I started small. I started cleaning the house, not as a chore, but as an act of creation. I organized the closets. I scrubbed the floors. I put up pictures. Transforming chaos into order felt powerful, more powerful than any protest I'd ever attended. Then I started cooking, really cooking, not just microwaving a sad veggie burger. I bought cookbooks. I watched YouTube videos. I learned how to make sauces from scratch, how to bake bread. I found I loved it. It was creative, hands-on, and had a tangible result. You couldn't argue with a perfect roast chicken. It was just good. The look on Alan's face when he'd come home, tired from work, to a warm, clean house and the smell of a home-cooked meal, that look was more validating than any promotion or accolade I had ever received in my career. It wasn't about being a doll. It was about creating comfort and joy. A year after we moved, our son, Leo, was born. If meeting Alan cracked the foundation of my old self, becoming a mother bulldozed it. Holding this tiny, helpless person in my arms. All the theory, all the jargon, all the intellectual posturing just evaporated. This was real. This was biology. This was love in its most ferocious, primal form. The need to protect and nurture him was an instinct so powerful it eclipsed everything else. It wasn't a social construct. It was the core of my being. People talk about the invisible labor of motherhood. They're not wrong. It's hard. The days are long. It's spit up and blown out diapers, and sleep deprivation so intense you feel like you're hallucinating. But it's also a purpose so profound it makes everything else seem trivial. My old job was about trying to fix the world. It was an abstract, impossible goal that only ever brought frustration. My new job was about fixing my son a bottle, kissing a scraped knee, reading Goodnight Moon for the 800th time. It was small, tangible, and infinitely more meaningful. My life wasn't a cause to be fought for on social media, filled with drama and hiding from my husband like some of the women in those video calls. My life was quiet, and it was mine. So here I am, 32 years old, wife, mother, housewife. I wake up with the sun, not an alarm clock. I make coffee and pack my husband's lunch while he's at work providing for us. I provide a peaceful, loving home for him to return to. I'm raising our son. I tend my garden. I cook. I clean. I bake. I'm a trad wife. I guess I'm a lot like those women who find faith in tradition after a life of liberalism. It's a journey back to something that feels ancient and true. My hands are not soft anymore. They have small cuts from gardening and calluses from kneading dough. I haven't been this tired or this happy in my entire life. Sometimes I log into my old Facebook account, a digital graveyard of my past self. I see my old friends. They're directors and VPs now. They post about their latest conference, their newest op-ed, their exhaustion. They post infographics about the importance of self-care, and then answer work emails at 11 p.m. They are still fighting, still angry, still trying to fix the world. I don't resent them. I just feel a quiet sadness for them, for the me I used to be. Feminism promised me liberation and power, but its version of power was just a new kind of servitude. Servitude to a boss, to a career, to a toxic ideology, to my own endless anger. There are whole communities of men who see this outcome as the inevitable result of that path. I surrendered my power in the world's eyes. I gave up the career, the title, the righteous struggle, and in return, I got my life back. Alan isn't my boss, he's my partner. He leads our family, he provides for us, and he protects us. I build our home, I nurture our family, and I support him. It's not a competition, it's a team. We have different roles, but the same goal, a happy, peaceful life together. I'm not wasting my potential or my degree. I'm channeling all that energy and intelligence into the single most important thing in the world, my family. My life is no longer a political statement. It's not a performance. It's just my life. Quiet, simple, and overflowing with a love I never thought was possible. Maybe I'm brainwashed. Maybe I'm a traitor to my gender. Or maybe, just maybe, I'm finally free and happy.